All right, hi everyone. Thank you so much for joining Jules and I today as we do our webinar about the power of social media. Just a few housekeeping items. As you can see, you are currently muted and your video is disabled, so no worries there. Our Q&A and chat, they will be live throughout the webinar, but we are going to try to save the questions until the end. We've actually designated, quite a bit of time at the end of the presentation, just so we can answer any candid questions you have about social media and how we're using it. And also, we are recording this webinar like we do with the others, and this will be sent to everybody who registered at the end of the webinar. All right, so Jules, if you want to share your video, I'm going to stop sharing my screen. Here you go. Hey.
Hey, how's it going?
Good, how are you? Good. So just a little tip for everyone too. If you want to see Jules and I right next to each other, go to the upper right-hand corner and change your view, and you can change it from speaker to gallery, and then you can have a nice little two videos next to each other. So good. Well, it's so good to see you. So hi everyone. You know me, I'm Lindsay Rogers, Mortarr's community manager, and I'm also a customer success manager here at Mortarr as well. And then today I am joined by Juliana Argis, and she's our social strategist. So welcome.
Thank you for having me.
So we're so excited to have you. So thank you to everyone for attending and for registering for today's webinar. Jules and I are so excited to share with you just the ins and outs of growing your social media presence. You'll also get some tips from Jules on how she uses social media for Mortarr's brand and for those subscribers who are a part of Mortarr's platform as well. So as I mentioned, you'll be receiving the recording after today's webinar, and then we'll also share with you Jules's email address so that if you have any follow-up questions or just really need some guidance on social media, you can reach out to Jules anytime. So I know you would love to get some emails from, some of our visitors, so that'll be great.
Absolutely. I know today's going to be fairly high level because we're all in different starting places. So please use that, reach out, ask questions. I love getting things in my inbox. So
I know. All right, well, good. So we're going to stop sharing our videos right now, and I'll go back to sharing the presentation. Here we go. All right. So I'll go on to our next slide here, just so we can get started. All right. So Jules, just a few stats here for our first slide.
Yeah. We'll try and go through these fairly quickly. Stats was not something I thrived in high school, but I do think that they're important when we're looking at overall picture and really the reason of why social media. So just to get us started, 3.5 billion social media users worldwide. That's out of a possible, what is it now, Lindsay? 8?
Yes, 8 billion. 8 billion people in the world, and 3.5 billion are actually using social media. That's insane.
Yep. So that's a really large audience that you can reach for free. That's one of the reasons I'm so passionate about social media, is that it is a free marketing tool for any individual and company to reach the audience that they're looking for. So 90.4% of millennials, 77.5% of Gen X, and 48.2% of baby boomers. I think what's so important here is that I know sometimes when we see or we say the word millennial, we're thinking that like that college age or that high school age or maybe even younger. And it's actually not. It's your millennials are your largest buying group to date because they span the ages of 24 to 39. So it's really post-college. They're either your current purchasing audience or they will become your future purchasing audience. And so at 90.4% of them being on social media channels, this is really a game of meeting them where they're at.
Definitely.
Your audience is on social media, so you have to be on social media.
Yep, I totally agree with that. And it's, you mentioned the ages of the millennials, and it's anyone born from 1981 to 1996, which really was eye-opening for me, just because, like you said, you think of a millennial, and I'm thinking of like our youngest, almost our youngest population. But the truth is anyone born between 81 and 96, we pretty much started using social media, end of high school, beginning of college for some of us. And it really has become a part of who we are and how we conduct business and how we even interact more than just being socially. So
Absolutely. Yeah. So love it or hate it, that's where we're at. It's how we've learned to interact as individuals, but also with companies. So moving on, users spend an average of 3 hours per day on social networks and messaging. Lindsay and I were just talking about this. Has anyone else gotten the, like Siri likes to tell me that I've hit my daily quota for screen time a lot during this COVID season.
oh my
So
gosh.
these are actually stats from last year. I'm gonna pretty much guarantee that 3 hours per day is significantly higher. I don't know about you, Lindsay.
I feel like if I hit 3 hours just in the morning period, I'm sitting pretty good here. Okay. Because I'm not even ashamed to admit it. I am on my phone all day, using social media, not only personally, but also professionally. So sometimes I'm going to have to
Yep.
say 8 hours.
Yep. Yeah, same. Thankfully that's my job description, but yeah, so that is definitely higher, which means their eyes are on social channels. So you need to be on social channels. 71% of consumers who have had a positive experience with a brand on social media are likely to recommend the brand to their friends and family. I think, that may seem high level, but the reality is that when you like something, what do? You tell someone about it, right?
Yes.
There is reciprocity in that. There's value in that. There's always more value in someone you trust telling you about a product or a company than you just finding it on your own. So that word of mouth is really, the old days of the handshake and my dad's dad kind of business. They're not necessarily gone, but they have shifted to social media. And so, that's where I get a lot of my, I'm totally influenced. I think we're all influenced every single day, whether it's the new coffee you tried from Starbucks or the new restaurant you went to. It's probably because someone told you about it because they had a good experience, either in person or they found them on social media.
And I completely agree with this stat too. And maybe it's because I fall into that millennial generation, but I can say that anything I find that I like, whether it be something from clothing or jewelry, or even to the food I'm eating or anything like that, I am sharing that with my sister or with my friends or anybody. So I would have to agree 71%. Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. And then that feeds right into that 54% of social browsers use social media to research products. So, I get asked a lot, well, why social media? Where we go to trade shows and we have a website. Those are all awesome, places to be as well. But that 90.4%, Lindsay, myself, we are researching things through social media channels. That's how my husband and I find all of the places that we're going to go to eat when we go on vacation. It's how we pick the coffee shop we're going to go to in the morning. It's how you search for a new company that you want to purchase clothing from. Whatever it is, we have been raised on researching products via those channels. So if you're not on them, how do I find you? Yes, Google's important, but that is a sea of 3,000 pages every time I do a single search. So,
and when it comes
so much easier
to, and I'm sorry to interrupt you, Jules, but I have to say that when it comes to companies that you're interested in working with, or just products that you're speccing and you want to know the validity of this company you're interested in purchasing from, being a part of social media is just that one extra layer of a way somebody can vet you. So, with Mortarr's platform, for instance, sometimes I feel like we fall into that social category, other times we may not, but it's just, for instance, another platform for somebody to be able to vet you, for somebody to be able to see that you're a part of a valid website, so that they can see and learn more about who you are and those that you are sharing your products and your services amongst.
Absolutely. I love that, Lindsay. I think that there's an element of we're seeking transparency, and that only exists when people are putting things out to tell us who they are on a multitude of platforms. And so whether it's, you hit it on the head with the Mortarr thing, like, where can I find you and find out more about your company? Where maybe a friend also likes you, maybe I can see the comments on a project that you've posted. That level of transparency is where you build trust and currency with both your current audience as well as any future audience. So
that's great.
I think that's so good, Lindsay.
Yeah, great. All right, let's go on to our next slide here.
Awesome. All right, so the big four, your social channels, you've got your Facebook, your Instagram, your LinkedIn, and Twitter. We all know that there are a multitude of other options out there that are quickly building audiences, whether that's Snapchat or TikTok, or I know there's some that I probably don't even know about at this point that are being created by 13-year-olds. But this is your main playing field. I figured we could just run through these, Lindsay, for those who are maybe just getting a handle on where to start or how to start. I will try and keep this as short as possible, but is that a good
I think that
start?
works out. I think that's great, just to show not only what Mortarr's a part of, but also the reasons why it's important to be on these platforms, and kind of, maybe the difference in audience or what that may look like.
Absolutely. So Facebook statistically it's the most well-known. It's the most populated platform. If someone's going to have a social channel, more than likely they're going to be on Facebook over all of the others. And content there can really span anything from, your cat videos to educational live webinars. So it runs the whole gamut of what you can put out there and what someone might consider acceptable to see on Facebook. So it's really it's a space where you can try new things, put out different content, and really have both that educational piece as well as some of the fun things around the office. This is where we post a lot of our team-oriented content because it's very community focused. Facebook encourages things that build community. They reward posts within the algorithm that have people engaging, liking, and commenting on stuff. So we do a lot of our, we'll share things from around the office. We'll share we call them Mortarr Littles. Those are all the kids that belong to our team. Birdie, the HR office dog, she makes an appearance on there, as well as then projects that we are featuring on behalf of our subscribers. So that's Facebook in a nutshell. Really, it's a kind of a catch-all place, an easy spot to start. Mm-hmm. Instagram is obviously your visually driven platform. This is in a design industry. This is maybe a great starting place for people. It could be challenging for others if you haven't really built up that portfolio or the graphics, that graphic content within your team, but it is naturally inclined for that design industry, just because you're able to share visually what you're doing as a team. And then let's see what else we have here. LinkedIn is kind of it's the business up front and business in the back. There's there's a little party, but very little. And that is because people are expecting to make connections on here. So this is a platform where it's fully acceptable to be posting your COVID updates, your job postings, companies that you're working with, sharing content from partners that you work with on a consistent basis, as well as anything that's educational, articles you're featured in, articles that you've written. That's really what is I hate to use the word acceptable, but that's what people expect when they go to that platform. And then last but not least, you have Twitter. This is your, I'd call this your thought platform, sometimes maybe lack of thought platform, but it's a content game. Twitter is very much, the more that you are capable of posting, the more you're going to be seen, because that feed is just constantly being updated. People on this platform they don't want to leave the platform. So offering them content that they can digest, within that, what is it, 160 count character, whatever the thought is that you're able to offer them, if that can be digestible where they don't have to leave the platform, that is also rewarded by both users and the algorithm. So I feel like that's kind of a place to start. One of the things with all of these that I think sometimes gets overlooked by companies specifically is that these are all communities that require a reciprocity. They want you to be engaged and building community on the platform. And so, putting a post out there and then walking away is not the intent. Yes, it can do the work that you maybe need it to do to just get information to your audience, but you're going to build a lot faster and a lot stronger fan base if you're spending time on the channel that you choose to be on to build that community.
I totally agree with that. And I think that's a perfect segue into the next slide that we have here. Ooh.
Yeah.
We were calling this slide the ABCs, audience, brand, and be consistent. Yeah. So ABC, but I think that's a great segue into this part.
Absolutely. So really, first of all, determine your audience. Do the research to find out where your current audience or fan base exists. What, you can look into a lot of that just with Google. Like if you know your age range, if you know your demographic, your location, a lot of that can be determined just by really knowing who is already on your side and purchasing from you. And then also, where is your future audience? If you are going after that millennial age for building that future fan base, where do they exist? Are they on Instagram? Are they on LinkedIn? As well as like knowing what content you're going to be offering. If you are education heavy, if you are partner and project heavy, do you show up on LinkedIn? Do you want to be making professional connections, or are you just trying to share the content that you have via Instagram? So really finding that audience, knowing where they are, will help you determine what platform to begin on. I know that some marketing and strategists will probably hate me for saying this, but I don't believe that you have to be on every single platform to start. I truly think that if you choose to really crush it on, one or two, it will set your team up for success on whatever channel you choose to move to next, once you have the capacity for that, really. So I think that's the A. Then develop your brand. This is something that can sometimes get lost in translation, but I think that it is so important to develop your brand voice. And this should come from the core values that your company holds, which is very much, is your leadership giving you the tools to know what that is. Our core values are very clearly defined at Mortarr. We have them written on the walls of our office. And so that really drives everything that we put out into the world. Is we want someone to, as they're scrolling, be able to, without seeing our logo, without seeing the name of our company, see a post, and based off of how that post makes them feel, they know that it's from Mortarr. So that comes from an overall look and brand, as well as the voice within the content, that they just know that, it's kind of like when you hear your spouse's or your mom's voice on the other end of the line, like, it's them without looking at your phone to see who's on the other end of the phone call. That's a strong brand voice. And so that's what we work to consistently do. I think that also is something that just inevitably builds trust with the people following you, because you're consistent. And And so then that leads into be consistent. I think
Perfect.
that whatever you determine that your team has the capacity for, I think it's important as you're looking at building social to see, what do you have the capacity for as is, and then what do you need to invest in worth of time to really be consistent on these channels. And that will kind of determine your capacity of how many channels you're on and what content you're putting out. But the algorithms reward the accounts that show up and are consistent with content as well as engagement. So that ties back into that. Make sure that you're going out and engaging with your followers, engaging with other companies, engaging with maybe potential followers on all of these channels. That could be, choose 2 to 3 times a week. That could be 2 to 3 times a day, depending on both your goal and your capacity as a team. So.
Yeah, and I like that you included the be consistent in here, because for myself as a regular viewer of social media, I truly start my day and I finish my day on social media. And it's the consistency for the brands that I choose to follow. So, when you look at all these different platforms, you'll see that there are amount of people that you follow and the amount of people that follow you. So if somebody goes to your page and the last time you posted was, let's just say, last month, last year, even, just last week, if you're not consistently posting, there's no reason for them to feel like they need to follow you. And, sometimes if I'm bored and I'm looking at my phone, I'll go through and start cleaning out the amount of people I'm following, because I don't want, I feel like and maybe this is the millennial in me, but I feel like my follow it means something, and it should mean something to the brands that I'm choosing to fill my social platforms with. And, and whether people realize it or not, they're starting to rely on your messaging. So I love when I start in my morning and I see in my feed these brands that I follow, and I start to rely on those posts. I want to know, what do they have going on? What's important to them? What's a key message that they are trying to share for that day? So consistency is definitely key.
Yeah, I think that's so good, Lindsay, especially now that we've shifted so much of our interaction to online, because that's the option that we have. I love that so much. I kind of have, a rhythm, like I know that I'm going to get content from these people, and really choosing what I bring in to my day starts with who I follow. So that is a trust and a community thing. And I think that is so important. I think lastly, are we on to Q&A, Lindsay? Is that what's up next?
Yep, Q&A.
Okay. I love it. I think one of the final things that I want to say just before we hop into questions is that this is a connection point for your desired audience. So marketing is all about connection. I love in-person things. I love trade shows. I think there's value there, but I also believe that so much connection is happening before you even get to that point. And I don't want people missing out on the opportunity to connect online. It can be as personal as you want it to be with how you choose to put your company's content and your voice out into the world. I do want to say that sometimes it's hard to measure ROI on social media. You don't always see that exact purchase or conversion. You absolutely might. But I do also think that there are significant intangible results that come from establishing that personal connection with these individuals and decision makers and getting your name in front of them. What's the stat, Lindsay? You have to see something or encounter something 7 times before you take an action?
Yep, that is actually fact too, that somebody needs to see something a multiple amount of times before they'll actually take action. So if something like a free platform within social media can do that for you, just think of it in that way. When it comes to ROI, is let social media, these free platforms, take up some of that for you, so that maybe that 7th time is a click on your website, a click to learn more, a click to send a contact us message to you.
Yep, absolutely.
Well, we do have a couple questions here, and please, everyone, there are no dumb questions out there except for the one that you chose not to ask. So please, whether it's something on a small scale, something on a grander scale. You have Jules, Mortarr's actual social person here. She does this day in and day out. So she is the best person to get some advice or some feedback from. So, okay, I do have a quick or a couple questions that came in. So somebody asked, how does Mortarr plan its content for each platform?
Oh, sure. That's a great question. We are anywhere from day of to 2 months out on our content planning. It really, building up your social calendar allows your team, both your creative team, your marketing team, and your sales team to have that margin to be developing new content, for the future, and really digging deep on what's working and what's not working. So we actually have our days planned out pretty far in advance, and we use a planner, like a social planner poster for that specifically. So I hope that answers the question.
Great, thank you for that. And then another question I have too that came in. So how often does Mortarr post on LinkedIn?
LinkedIn is usually 3 to 4 times a week. So our busiest traffic days are Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. All of those things are available to you in analytics. I'd encourage you to dig into those as much as possible. But when we start to post over that, it seems to lose some traction. So that 3 to 4 posts a week is kind of our sweet spot. So the fourth being on a Monday or a Friday, but always weekdays.
Great, and that's a great segue too into another question we have. So what's the easiest way to determine the best day and time to post on each social platform? How can somebody easily determine that?
Oh, sure. So like I said, we use the platform that we use is actually called eClincher. This is not an ad. I'm not being paid. We love the planner that we use. And so all of ours are actually housed within that as a tool. So I can go in and see the exact time of day that we have our highest audience online. I can see where they live. I can see, if it's man or a woman looking at the post. I can see, their age range, all of those demographics, those also live within the social media platforms. So
I was just going to ask you that because I thought, I'm glad that you touched on it, because I believe that you can gather that information on the platforms itself, correct?
Absolutely. Yep. They have, they may not be as robust, but I know that Facebook and Instagram are definitely, they give you all of that information right inside the platform. If you don't have a business profile, you won't be able to see those. So I'd encourage you to, make sure that you're set up correctly on those, but all of that lives within those channels under the analytics portion. So,
well, thank you. So I have a couple more questions. So how often would you say that Mortarr, how often I don't know why I can't read today, you guys, I'm sorry.
It's okay.
How often would you say you should boost your posts on Facebook?
That is a good question. That's a difficult question because it's going to be different for everyone. But I do think, so one of the most recent books that I was reading talks about firing bullets and then firing cannonballs. And I think it's extremely important to be okay with failing, be constantly putting new content out, try new things. Those are your bullets. And then when you see that something lands, it's got great organic traffic and engagement. Maybe it takes off more than a normal post. And that's really where we start to lean towards our boosting. We always have, we really try to always have something boosted, for a span of time over a month or whatever. I don't think you need to boost every post. I don't believe in that. I know that sometimes it's a pay to play game depending on how you're trying to grow your audience. But I think it's very important to capitalize on what's happening organically. And that is when I would dive into boosting and really narrowing that audience as much as you can. Hopefully that answers the question. Mm-hmm.
And then what metrics do you look at to judge the success of a social campaign?
Oh, that's a good question. So a lot of your, your social platforms are going to focus on your engagement rate, your click-through rate. I think those are all great things. Specifically for Mortarr, we're actually looking for click-throughs and interactions with our subscribers. That is our end goal. So we spend time every single week reviewing what social posts led to an interaction on Mortarr, because that's our, we're lucky enough that our content doesn't really even have to talk about us. We're talking about all of our subscribers. And so our ultimate metric is, did that get an interaction with a subscriber on our site? That's not always going to be, for everyone else on the call, maybe that's not your metric, but I think you really have to determine as a team, what is your goal with social media? Is it the purchase of a new product? Is it education on a new launch? Is it getting people to your upcoming, CEU course or trade show? I think that's a great question for both the sales and the marketing team is why are we on social, and what goal are we trying to achieve with the content that we're putting out there? So I think it's important to always be aware of your engagement rate. If you're seeing significant drop in what people are interacting with, that's your first clue that they're maybe not as hungry for the content that you're putting out there. So what can you shake up? What can you try differently? But I don't know if I have a great answer for you, because ours is such a specific measurement for our team.
No, that's great. Thank you so much for answering that. And I'm sorry, everybody, we have a few other questions, but we're out of time. So like I said, everyone, you'll be receiving a follow-up email in regards to this webinar. It will not only have the recording, but it will have Jules's email address, which you can see right here as well. We'll go ahead and send that over to you. And then also with that, we are going to send over Mortarr's media kit options, just so that you can see how Mortarr, someone like Jules, can actually help support your marketing efforts. We'll send that over to you as well. So we really do invite not only questions to Jules, but please reply to my email as well. And we can chat through, like I was saying, the ways that Mortarr can help support your audience and, what you're trying to say and share. So, well, thank you so much, everybody. Follow us on social. Every time you see that, that's Jules out there chatting with all of you. So make sure to engage. Don't leave her hanging out there. So thank you so much, everybody, and have a great day.